John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. to talk about the latest from Ukraine. Let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. And again, hope the sound is good for you guys this time. It should be. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. One sec. Today's going to be a more serious episode, so to speak. We must talk war. I had an interesting dinner party last night that got me thinking more about it. Hang on a second. I'm going to change the title of my TikTok to entice more people. War with Russia. That should get the trolls coming for the mods. War with Russia. There we go. All right. Excuse me a sec here. Boom. Let's do 5. There we go. All right. Anyway, hello all. Hello. Do your usual welcome where you're from kind of thing. All right. Let me get TikTok rolling. There we go. All right. TikTok is rolling. My mics are working. Woo woo. Very exciting. Very exciting. All right. Here comes TikTok. We'll give them a second to join us. All right. Sound is great. Good. Hey, I spent $150 on that new little toy for you guys. Or actually, more than that. I had to buy a little $200 so I could get a new little toy to make my mic better. So hope it's better. Anyway, hey, TikTokers. Hey, Ash. All right. So what I'm going to do this time is maybe let's wait half a minute and then I'm going to start the show. I know I normally wait a couple minutes, but I worry sometimes that we get people like on YouTube that might come and leave and that kind of stuff. So we're going to wait half a minute, then start the show. And then if folks miss it, c'est la vie. Hey, Shane, thank you for the gift. Yeah, give a shout out where you're from, guys. I always think that's kind of fun. Soren in Denmark, lovely. Anyway, yeah, so Friday, woo-woo. Hey, Crazy American, good to see you. Tomorrow, remember, we've got our coffee talk, so to speak. So join us for that. That is going to be our, oops, hang on a second. Oh, thank you, Crazy American and Lori for the gifts. Our coffee talk tomorrow is 11 o'clock Central, Eastern time, excuse me. We're going to have Vlad join us to talk about the latest from Ukraine, which will be fun. And it's only for the paid subscribers, so keep that in mind. Thank you, Praxis, for the heart. It's only for the paid subscribers, the paid monthly subscribers. So the TikTokers can join us on TikTok, the YouTubers, Twitch, Ko-fi, Discord, all of you will join us on Discord. Thank you, Elizabeth. Won't be able to stream on anything else at this point because the only way to get the stream quality up is to use OBS, and I can really only stream to one. So far, we're just doing TikTok and YouTube. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Jens. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So I'll start the show, and we'll get more people coming in as we talk, but that's okay. Thank you, John. We can always do a recap afterwards. As I said, remember, we got our coffee talk tomorrow morning, our coffee talk 11 a.m. Eastern for the paid subscribers. Thank you, Carl Vincent, for being a 3-month subscriber on YouTube. All right, guys, let's get rolling. So today is day 694 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. Oops, yeah, I'm going to adjust the mic again. Sorry, keep adjusting this. We're going to see because it gets a little bit hot. There we go. Because the problem is YouTube, it gets a little meek. TikTok, it gets a little hot. It's not fun. Thank you, Allie. So, lot of sort of some scary news today. Thank you, Jetta. I don't want to freak everybody out, but I've got several stories in a row that are a little creepy. First, a better conversation first is actually, you know what, guys, I'm still playing with the mic a little bit. Is oh, the lip sync is off. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice on YouTube. Don't even tell me that because there's nothing I can do about that. Why don't you try refreshing the page and see if it helps? But take the mic down a little. You guys are funny. I had the mic. Okay, I've got the mic turned down halfway for the YouTubers. How is the sound now on YouTube? Sorry, guys. I'm still playing with some new technology with the mic, so we still have to kind of adjust it a little bit. Okay, mic level, I just put at 50%, so let's see if that works for TikTok and YouTube now. Sometimes YouTube gets funky with the mic, unfortunately. I don't know why. In any case, so what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So let me start with the less scary news, and then we'll do a little bit more of the scary news. There was an interesting story today in Politico, I think it was, talking about kind of where things are. Oh, the other warning I'm going to give you. In about 1 minute, I have to go take a banana bread out of the oven. Thank you. Who's that? Pizditz for the heart. I was getting ready to bake, but the thing takes an hour and 10 minutes, and I was putting it in the oven going, son of a bee, so in about a minute, I'm going to have half a minute, I'm going to get up and take my banana bread out, and then we will, So, hey, you know how my show is. If it's not a dog interrupting us, it's my baking. But I'm going to wait 20 seconds here. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to get up right now, grab my banana bread out of the oven, and then continue. So give me 30 seconds, guys. 1 second. All right. All right. There we go. Boom. 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 All right. Okie dokie. Boom. All done. There we go. All right. We are done. Oh my God, that smells good. I wish you could be here to smell it. Woo, so freaking good. All right, guys. So let's get rolling here. All right. So first story I want to talk about is U.S. intelligence coming out and basically saying that maybe we should be a little less worried about the initial months of the U.S. cutting off Ukraine. As you know, the U.S. has not renewed aid to Ukraine. House Republicans are, every tech thing is giving me issues today. Oh my God. I'm looking at my camera on YouTube going hot, cold, hot, cold. Anyway, but the U.S. has not renewed aid to Ukraine. The House Republicans are refusing to fund additional aid unless Biden accedes to their demands on the border with Mexico. And in general, the larger concern for House Republicans is really Donald Trump doesn't want them to provide more aid to Ukraine. That's the really bigger issue here, is that, and frankly, I could see Democrats being in a similar position if Trump were in power. The year of an election in Washington, typically you don't want to give, if you're from the opposite party, so in other words, Biden's a Democrat, if you're a Republican, you typically don't want to give the Democrat any big victory that year because it helps him in the election. Same thing would happen if Donald Trump were president and Democrats controlled the Congress. They wouldn't want to give Trump any big victories the year of his reelection because, again, it's going to help him, right? So from a Republican perspective, having the border be in chaos is good in terms of the election. Now, obviously, it's not good for America, but I'm talking politics, guys. From a political perspective, Republicans would love to basically argue that the border's a mess and you need a Republican in charge, not Biden. So the border, it is not clear the border situation is going to get addressed this year. The problem for Ukraine is Republicans have tied border funding to Ukraine funding and said, thank you, Kronos, for the TikTok gift. We are not going to give you money for Ukraine until you provide money and a fix for the border. So you see, it's a catch-22. Republicans won't fund Ukraine unless the border is fixed, but Republicans won't fix the border because they want to use it as a political issue for the election. So Ukraine cannot get money no matter what. Thank you, Doggy Dave. The good news is U.S. intelligence says it's going to be a number of months before the cutoff of aid to Ukraine makes a big difference. In large part, thank you, Cerveza, in large part because the Russians aren't able to do much right now. I mean, they're fighting with Ukraine, right? And, shooting down each other's planes, things like that. But in terms of any big offensives, the Russians don't have the troops, they don't have the manpower, they don't have the weapons to really launch another big offensive right now. So Ukraine's not in imminent danger of the U.S. aid cutoff making a big difference, but it's going to kick in and start making a bigger difference. Thank you, Bulford, and thank you, Alexander. For example, let me check out some of this. Some of the concerns, let me pull this. Okay. This was the meeting Biden had with the members of Congress this week, the top Republicans and Democrats in Congress, to talk about Ukraine aid. He had Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, and the director of national intelligence, Avril Haines. Thank you, Noteworthy, for the TikTok gift. Come in and talk about what the impact would be on Ukraine. I'm reading you here. I think this was from Politico, I think. At one point, they came in and laid out the specific capabilities that Ukraine would run out of in the coming months, according to a White House official. Another official told CNN that they specifically pointed to air defense systems and artillery ammunition as examples of key capabilities that could be depleted without U.S. support. In other words, artillery, because we know Ukraine's had a problem with artillery anyway. Europe has not been able to provide enough. We've not been able to provide enough. That's hugely important artillery in terms of day-to-day. They use a lot of it. Thank you for the gift. Who's that, Annette, for the gift? In terms of air defense systems, that's an obvious one, right? What does Ukraine deal with more than anything? They deal with the Russians every single day coming in and bombing the hell out of Ukraine with missiles and with drones. The drones they get from the Iranians, and then they've also been making them themselves now. So those are really the most important systems that the Ukrainians need on a day-to-day basis, is stopping the missiles from coming in so it doesn't kill civilians, and also the artillery shells that they're using actually on the battlefield. Biden also warned that U.S. personnel were on the line, saying that if the Ukraine-Russia war spills over into NATO territory, the U.S. would have to get directly involved in the conflict. Now, the concern there is that if Russia is able to do well in the war. Now, it's an interesting question as to whether Russia's doing well or not right now, right? Ukraine and Russia are tied at the moment. Russia had twice as much land. They occupy 17% of Ukraine. But they occupied twice as much of Ukraine. And the Ukrainians were able to push the Russians back, with our help, to about 17% from maybe 35% control of Ukraine. So that's great, and that's really good. But the Russians still control 17%, which is bad. But the Russians want to control all of Ukraine, and they're not able to do it. So the Russians and the Ukrainians both are in a weird situation where it's a bit of a stalemate. The Ukrainians have had a lot of success pushing the Russians back, but the Russians still control 17% of Ukraine. That's not good. I include the Crimea in the 17%. I think it's included. That's a very good question, D. Lyle, if it is, but I've always assumed that 17% figure includes Ukraine. Suffice it to say, a fifth of Ukraine maybe, thank you, Sean, a fifth of Ukraine is still occupied by Russia, and it doesn't look like Ukraine's getting it back anytime soon. That's not good. But Russia itself, how does it get out of this war, right? It's not like the Ukrainians, thank you, user, are going to be rolling over anytime soon, right? So you've got a stalemate, but the stalemate is a problem for both sides because neither side can really get out. The Ukrainians don't want to get out because Russia controls 17% of Ukraine. They want it back. The Russians can't get out because they can't declare victory and leave because the Ukrainians will just keep fighting to get their land back, understandably. So anyway, the concern is there that at some point, if the Russians do well enough here, could this war expand and the Russians could pose a threat to NATO? I'm going to talk about that next. Just put that in the back of your head right now. Now, the Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, actually made a good comment. Not a good comment. I think he made an accurate comment about Ukraine. The Republicans are in a weird situation about funding the war in Ukraine because Donald Trump doesn't support it. Thank you, Succeed. Donald Trump, and Sean as well. Donald Trump has made clear that from day one, he's going to end the war. He's just going to stop funding Ukraine. Donald Trump is beholden to Vladimir Putin. This has been proved time and again. Donald Trump also doesn't like Ukraine because he believes some crazy conspiracy theory that Ukraine conspired with Hillary Clinton in 2016 to, throw the election. It's part of his conspiracy theories about the election that he keeps promoting. Thank you, Elizabeth. Also includes Ukraine. And as we know, Trump really believes his conspiracy theory. Well, I shouldn't say he believes them. Trump promotes he likes his conspiracy theories. So the problem is that Trump doesn't want to fund Ukraine. Republicans don't want to anger Trump. So what do? You've got Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, wasn't very supportive of Ukraine at all before, now seems to be more supportive, but he's juggling a very small group of Republicans in the House. Keep in mind, the Republicans in the House have only a 2-seat majority, right? They've only got 2 votes to spare. If all the Democrats vote against something, they need all the Republicans save 2 to get anything passed. So they don't have much room to lose anybody. And Johnson, therefore, is in a weird position where you've got the MAGA Republicans with Trump. You get the MAGA Republicans in the House, right, who are a significant bloc, who say they don't want to help Ukraine. You've got the conservative Republicans, the traditional conservative Republicans, who think that Russia's our enemy and Russia poses a threat and that America shouldn't just let a democracy be overridden and destroyed by a dictatorship. And he's trying to juggle those. So he's trying to play a little bit of and politically, the Republicans still have to worry that even though Trump is anti-Ukraine and pro-Putin, if Ukraine falls, hey, thank you, Japanese person, for the hearts. If Ukraine falls, there is still a risk of it being perceived as the Republicans' fault, right? Look at how much trouble Biden got when the withdrawal from Afghanistan was such a disaster, right? It blew up in Biden's face, and Biden got blamed for it. And it's still to this day, it resonates poorly for Biden. Well, if Ukraine were to fall, you've got the situation of the Republicans being blamed for the Russians taking over a European country and, frankly, potentially putting us at a risk of war with Russia in terms of threats to other NATO countries. They don't want that. So Johnson's playing an interesting little balancing act of trying to sound open to possibly aid to Ukraine, but saying, but we must get money for the border first. Listen to the other thing Johnson said today. And I don't blame him for what he said today. Listen to this, or what he said in the last day. Listen to this to CNN. We cannot spend billions of dollars without a clear strategy articulated. And I told the president in the meeting today, again, as I've been saying repeatedly, sir, you have to articulate what the strategy is. What is the end game? He's right. President Biden doesn't have a strategy and he doesn't have an end game. I absolutely positively think we cannot abandon Ukraine. I think it is a moral responsibility for the U.S. I think we are at a serious risk of war in Europe that the U.S. will get dragged into if we lose Ukraine. Thank you, Nicholas. But at the same time, why are we spending? We've already spent $100 billion, and we're going to spend another $100 billion on a war that President Biden literally doesn't know what he wants out of it. I have talked about this before. Some of you may not agree, but I got to tell you, pretty much every defense expert I know agrees with me for what it's worth. I was at a dinner last night, number of defense experts, they all agree with me. Biden doesn't want Ukraine to win. Excuse me, Biden doesn't want Russia to win, right? Because he's afraid if Russia wins and takes Ukraine, they pose a threat to Europe. But he doesn't want Ukraine to win. Because if Ukraine wins, Ukraine takes back all of its territory, including Crimea, that Russia stole in 2014, and Putin will freak out if Putin loses Crimea, and Biden's afraid he'll go nuclear. I think it's ridiculous worrying about Putin going nuclear. Nonetheless, that's what Biden's worried about. So Biden is in this weird position where he wants a tie. From the beginning, he wanted a tie. He didn't want Russia to take all of Ukraine. He didn't mind Ukraine getting back the territory that it lost in the last 2 years, the new territory that Russia took, but he didn't want Ukraine to get all the territory back. Thank you, Japanese person, for the hat and mustache. He didn't want Ukraine to get all the territory back because that meant Crimea too, Ukraine's territory in the south that Russia stole in 2014. The problem is, if you're Joe Biden, how do you, thank you, Joe, how do you provide enough aid to Ukraine to get back these territories, the new ones Russia stole, but not so much aid that Ukraine is able to get these territories in the south, Crimea, right? So in other words, we want Ukraine to get back a large chunk of its land, but not all of its land. If we give Ukraine enough weapons to get back a large chunk of its land, it'll have enough weapons to get back the rest of its land. Are you getting what I'm getting at here? Biden's goal here and his strategy in this war is contradictory. We can't give Ukraine enough weapons. It's not possible under Biden's strategy, because if we give Ukraine the weapons it needs, let me get out my map and show you guys what I'm talking about. Okay, 1 second. All right. All of this is the land. Oops, my shirt. I got to tighten my shirt again. I feel like I'm watching. What was it, Jack Harkness or whatever his name is, with the what was it? It was not The Face of Bo. It's that woman, the woman on, you know what I'm talking about, the woman with the facelift who's like 2 million years old or whatever the hell it is. In any case, you've got Russia controlling all of this of Ukraine. Biden wants Ukraine to get this land back, the land that Russia stole in the last 2 years. Biden does not want Ukraine to get this land back, the land that Russia stole in 2014. Cassandra, there you go. The problem is, if we give Ukraine enough weapons to get this back, then they'll have enough weapons to get this back. And we don't want them to get this back. So we end up giving them, not just Biden, France and Germany too, shortchanged Ukraine on the weapons so they wouldn't be able to take this back. But then it made it harder for them to take this back, and they weren't able to. There's a lot of other points, but that's really the main one. So what do we do going forward? We still, because Biden thinks, somebody said why here, Webadeb, because Biden thinks that Putin will go nuclear if he loses Crimea. Crimea, the territory in the south, is so important to the Russians, so important to Putin that he will declare nuclear war if he loses it, which I think is utter BS, right? But again, if we gave Ukraine $100 billion, if we give Ukraine another $100 billion, to do what? To take back, again, we're going to give them another $100 billion to take back this, but not take back this. Well, no. I guarantee you, we're going to keep pulling our punches. The Germans won't give Ukraine the Taurus missile. We won't give them the long-range ATACMS, right? We're going to keep pulling punches because we don't want Ukraine to take this. So we're going to give them another $100 billion, but still hold back the important weapons Ukraine needs to win. Then why the hell even do it? I mean, you know this. I'm a big defender of Ukraine. But ironically, the Speaker of the House, the Republican, is correct. Biden's playing games. Biden doesn't have a strategy to win, but he wants us to spend more money on basically a half-pregnant strategy. We want Ukraine not to lose, but not to win. Well, then what's the frickin' point? Well, Martin says the package is only $61 billion. $61 billion, $100 billion. It's still a lot of money, right? Thank you, Jonathan. And I'm all for it. But honestly, I don't want to spend a dime on Ukraine if Biden doesn't want to win. If Biden can't figure out why the hell we're there and what he wants out of it, then let's not spend a dime. You know this. I do not think we should cut off Ukraine. But Biden's playing games, and I'm sick of him playing games on this. Absolutely sick of him playing games on this. Quintessential Politics says U.S. debt is at $34 trillion. It is. And Donald Trump's tax cuts are about 25%. They were about 30-some% of the debt. Now, if that number is correct, Trump's tax cuts are maybe 25% of that debt. And most of that debt is from Republican tax cuts. So I'm all for it. If you're for repealing the Republican tax cuts, okay. But I guarantee you, if Donald Trump becomes president, you and Trump, you alone, I guarantee you among others, are going to support more Republican tax cuts that are going to add to the deficit again. My problem is, I don't want to hear from Republicans how it's okay to increase the deficit if a Republican president's in power, but when a Democratic president is in power, we're not allowed to increase the deficit. Either we worry about the deficit or we don't, but I'm not going to play games and say, let's have the Democrats be the only ones that have to cut their budget and cut domestic programs so that Republicans can then come and spend like drunken sailors when they become president. That's not fair. So that's my problem with that argument is I guarantee you, I don't know you personally, but I would bet money that you never raised that concern during Donald Trump. I would bet money you never raised the concern about the deficit during Donald Trump. And you didn't complain about the Trump tax cuts. Guarantee you. Thank you, Annie, for the gift. All right. Let me move on. So now we got to move on from serious to even more serious. Okay. Hang on a second here. Let me see. I'm looking here. I cut a lot of stuff back, but it's okay. Yeah, we can talk more about it in terms of the impact of U.S. cut in aid, but you know what it is. Thank you, Napoleon. Democrats are, let's skip this. So let's talk about war. Okay, since we had one serious topic, let's have an even more serious topic. So a couple different stories today about members of NATO warning about whether we're at risk of going to war with Russia. I think we are, but I don't think we're at risk of going to war with Russia today. I don't think it's guaranteed that we will go to war with Russia. I do think that we are at at the same risk of going to war with Russia now or in the next 10 or 20 years as we were at going to war with the Soviet Union. And that was a serious risk, but in 70 years, we never went to war with the Soviet Union, okay? I mean, right? It was an issue, but we never did go to war with the Soviets. And I think we're in the same boat with the Russians. They're a threat. We could go to war with them. They're belligerent and they'd love to go to war with us. But at the same time, we were able to keep the Soviets at bay, and I think we can keep the Russians at bay. But we did it by building up our military and by building up our defense and by basically defending our allies like Ukraine. Well, let me read you two different quotes here. So German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius was quoted in the last day or so saying that he thinks Russia could attack NATO countries in under a decade. Quote, our experts expect a period of 5 to 8 years in which this could be possible. 5 to 8 years. Thank you, Tick. 5 to 8 years from now, Russia could attack NATO. We hear threats from the Kremlin almost every day, so we have to take into account that Vladimir Putin might even attack a NATO country one day, but it is unlikely for now. However, he said, one thing is certain, this is the German defense minister, one thing is certain, we are dealing with a military threat situation in Europe that has not existed for 30 years. The concern among a lot of European countries is that Russia is back, that the Soviet Union is back, that the ideology of the Soviet Union is back. Other than communism, which is not back, the same imperialist, warmongering dictatorship, wanting to take over its neighbors, wanting a buffer between it and the West. In other words, wanting to take over its neighbors, not just to take them over and eat them, in essence. Russia wants to take Ukraine because Russia literally believes that Ukraine is Russia, that Ukraine doesn't have the right to exist. So that's one reason. But the other reason is Russia wants to expand its land into Europe. I've got the other map here from Ava. You've got All of this is Russia, okay? And then you got the border countries, Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland. Russia, after World War II, a couple different things, okay? In the 1900s, you had Russia, Soviet Union. Soviet Union ate these countries, the Baltic countries. Soviet Union ate Ukraine. Soviet Union ate Belarus. So a number of countries the Soviet Union, run by Russia, really ate and took over and held them captive as hostages, basically. The other thing the Soviets did, which was pretty much the Russians, we worked with them in World War II, right? You know, we had my enemy's enemy, right? We worked with them to defeat the Nazis. We also, frankly, helped them a lot to defeat the Nazis. The Russians like to take credit solely, but our Lend-Lease, we gave the Russians so much aid, they probably wouldn't have survived without our help. Nonetheless, the Russians did do a good job. Well, but then the Russians afterwards, turning back into typical Russians, beat the Nazis and said, you know what? Let's go and steal half of Europe for ourselves. So after World War II, the Russians divided Germany in half and literally took half of Europe and took it as their own. And they created communist dictatorships in the other half of Europe. They cut Germany in half and created East Germany, okay? Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. They turned all of these countries into brutal, brutal, brutal communist dictatorships because that's what the Russians do. Take us back to today. That's where the Russians are again. They want a buffer. What Russia did was it took countries like Ukraine, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Bulgaria as a buffer between it and the West. It also took the Eastern European countries that it created dictatorships in, and basically they were their Russian puppets. This was a buffer too, so that if NATO was going to go to war with Russia, it had to go through all the Eastern European puppets first, right? So that's what Putin wants again. Putin wants the puppets back. He wants the Soviet Union back. He thinks he, like many Russians, regret the fact that they lost a bunch of land when their basic hostages like Ukraine and the Baltic states got freed, but also they want that buffer back to protect with Europe. Putin wants that again, and that's why the risk of war is real. And that's what the German foreign minister is talking about. Another story out today saying the same thing. The Telegraph was reporting on this, but it's all over the place. A Dutch naval officer who's chairman of NATO's military committee. Thank you, Infected Wi-Fi. And guys, please do keep the gifts coming on YouTube and TikTok. Remember, I do this for free, and I do it full time. And the way I'm able to afford doing it is with your gifts. So please do keep them coming. I appreciate it, so I can pay the bills. Admiral Bauer, who's a Dutch naval officer, thank you, Martin, told reporters at a meeting of NATO defense chiefs in Brussels, thank you, Magical, that, listen to this, we have to realize it's not a given that we are in peace. Thank you, Tom and Lori. And that's why we, NATO forces, are preparing for a conflict with Russia. Thank you, Timothy. But the discussion is much wider. It is also the industrial base and also the people that have to understand they play a role. Thank you, Hedge. There are lots of gifts coming out. Thank you, guys. Bauer praised Sweden for asking all of its citizens to brace for war ahead of the countries formally joining the alliance. Stockholm's move, announced earlier this month, has led to Sweden asked all of its citizens to brace for war ahead of the country moving to join the alliance. Stockholm's move has led to a surge in volunteers for the country's civil defense. Quick thank on the gifts. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chazak and KC and Hedge and Lori. His concern is that, again, the Russians are getting more belligerent, and he specifically brings up the industrial base, meaning, can NATO defend itself? Do we have the capacity, the industrial capacity, to make the weapons we need to defend ourselves? And it seems from Ukraine we don't. I mean, I think one of the most shocking things for all of us with Ukraine was the fact that we didn't have enough weapons. I mean, some of the complaints were we didn't want to give Ukraine all the weapons it needed because we were afraid of antagonizing Russia. But we also said we didn't have enough weapons. Artillery. We don't have enough artillery shells. Between the U.S. and Europe, we don't have enough artillery shells to even give Ukraine to fight the Russians. We're trying to make more. Europe promised they would build, buy 1 million artillery shells for Ukraine. They failed. They weren't able to do it. If we got into war with Russia today, again, not going to happen today because it's going to take Russia several years to build back up. But if we got into a war with Russia, we'd have a very difficult time surviving in that war because we don't have the factories, the factories to make these weapons in time. and to the extent we need, thank you, Mustard, to keep fighting the war. So that's another concern that he's raising there. Thank you, Mustard. In any case, I think it's interesting, thank you, Christine, that you've got two sort of senior NATO officials talking about the risk of war with Russia. And as I said, I don't think we're at risk of going to war any day soon. I do think we're at risk of war in the same way we were with the Soviet Union, where Russia's back, the Soviet Union's back. And at some point, they would love to go to war with us, even though I think it would be very stupid of them to do it. They'd love to go to war with us, and we just got to be prepared for it. Okay, a little more news here. Speaking of which, NATO will launch its largest military exercise in a decade, in decades, plural actually, next week. About 90,000 personnel are expected to take part in war games called Steadfast Defender 24 that will last until the end of May. Ukraine attacked 4 oil reservoirs inside Russia with a capacity of 6,000 cubic meters, 1.6 million gallons. They were set on fire in western Russia. Ukraine has pretty much taken responsibility. They used remote-controlled aircraft to do it, which is pretty cool. British Ministry of Defense did a little further analysis on those Russian spy planes that Ukraine shot down. Remember, they basically blew up and crashed the one Russian spy plane that's an AWACS type spy plane. So basically, big airliner with a stick coming out the top and a UFO on top. So a pancake, right? Like a circular dome on top that rotates, and it's a super duper radar plane, basically, okay? Well, the Ukrainians shot it down. They also shot down a companion plane that is also a surveillance plane, a spy plane, doing a lot of damage to Russia because Russia just doesn't have that many of these planes. Listen to this. This is from the British Ministry of Defense today. A Russian A-50 mainstay, the AWACS plane I was talking about, almost certainly exploded and subsequently crashed into the Sea of Azov off of Ukraine. The A-50 mainstay is a key enabler for Russian operations over Ukraine, providing airborne early warning of threats as well as command and control functionality. In other words, it has a twofold purpose, the plane the Ukrainians shot down. One, it keeps an eye on what's going on so it can warn the Russians threats are coming in, missiles coming in, Ukrainian planes coming in, right? So threats coming from Ukraine. It also provides command and control for the Russians if the Russian aircraft are themselves making an attack on Ukraine. It helps them coordinate those attacks, okay? On January 17th, 2024, the Russian Air Force appears to have begun operating another A-50 mainstay. This was after the Ukrainians shot down the previous one, but this time over land within Russian territory near the Krasnodar region, further eastwards from Ukraine. This activity is highly likely indicative of a reduced risk appetite. Let me tell you real quick. Basically, what they're saying is, in response to the Ukrainians shooting down the plane, which I'll show you on my map. Hang on. So all of this is Ukraine. Russians control this part of Ukraine. Russians flying the spy plane over here, and the Ukrainians shoot it down. Well, because the Ukrainians shot it down, the Russians are now flying the spy plane, but they're flying it inside Russia. They're not even flying it over Ukraine. And the point that the British Ministry of Defense makes is, thank you, Soren, by the way, for the gift. The point the British Ministry of Defense makes, if Ukraine didn't shoot down this plane, if it was a Russian accident and they shot down their own plane, they wouldn't be hiding this spy plane way over in Russia. They would be flying it where the other one went down, near Ukraine. The only reason they're not flying it near Ukraine is because the Ukrainians clearly shot it down, which is really, a very simple analysis, but a very smart analysis that this is proof that the Ukrainians shot it down, which is very cool. Let me read. That's pretty much it. Baltic countries have announced that they're going to build defenses on Russian-Belarusian borders. This is from the Kyiv Post. The agreement signed by the defense ministers of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania provides for defense installations on their borders to deter and, if necessary, protect against military threats. Thank you, adventurers. Oops, wrong map. That would be the Baltic states, former Soviet states, these three right here, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, bordering Russia right here. They're building up their defenses because, understandably, they're getting more concerned about the Russians. Also because, really, probably the first countries that Russia would like, the first NATO countries Russia would like to get back would be those three. They'd like to get Moldova too, but they'd really like to get Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia back. So the concern is that they're facing sort of some of the biggest threat from the Russians. Finally, I wanted to show you really quick. I pulled up that chart of military aid to Ukraine by country because we were talking about this the other day, and you guys were asking about the different countries and everything. I'm going to read you a few of them, like who provided how much actually total, not just the last year, overall. And I want to, I don't know if this is overall in the last year. I think it's overall. I'm not sure what the time period is, actually. I'm not sure what the time period is. The time period might be the last year. But in any case, listen to this. So you've got the U.S. providing the most, not surprisingly. Germany, number 2, which we had heard about, very good. Then Britain, number 3. Then the European Union overall, okay? Then Norway, Denmark, Poland. So you've got a lot of the Eastern countries, the Nordic countries and the Eastern European countries. Poland. Netherlands, kind of interesting. Netherlands is number 8 or 9 on the list, which is kind of cool for a small country. Sweden, again, very cool. Canada, you guys were asking where Canada is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Canada's number 10, not terrible. Finland, Czech Republic, then Italy and France. Now, it gets pretty bad when you get down to Italy and France. So Canada, not too bad. Italy and France, not great. But that's what we were talking about before. Anthony asked a question. Do you think that Ukraine will left to EU and UK for help without the US? So you mean, do I think the Ukraine will be left? Oh, I see. Will be left to the European Union and the UK for help without the US? Well, sure. I mean, that's exactly what's going to happen. If the US stops helping Ukraine, there's no choice but to turn to Europe, and that, including the UK. There's no choice. The problem is that the US has been providing about half, as that chart shows. Again, look at this. You add it all up, and the US has been providing half the aid to Ukraine. If the US no longer is helping Ukraine, where's that half coming from? Europe? How is Europe going to double the amount of aid? We've already seen that when it comes to artillery shells, for example, Europe just can't produce enough. They can't get enough. So where's the aid going to come from? Russia's been able to turn to North Korea. They've been able to turn to China. Russia got like 1 million artillery shells from North Korea. Where are we going to get it from? Where are the Europeans going to get it from? So yes, they would have to turn to the Europeans, including the Brits, but there's only so much they can produce. This comes back to what we talked about earlier in terms of the industrial capacity. The factories can only produce so much in these countries. And, sorry, my nose is itching. Do we really think the Europeans can double the amount of weapons that they provided to Ukraine? I don't think they can. I just don't think they can. So it's not good. It's not good. Thank you for that, Anthony. Let's do, we can do our Q&A now. That's it for the news. Please do keep the gifts coming. TikTok and YouTube. Remember, guys, your gifts help pay my bills. So please, please, please keep them coming. I'm not kidding on that. This is my full-time job, so your gifts literally help me pay the bills and keep the show going. So thank you. Thank you, Mark Starr. Mom is doing great. Thank you for asking, Buford. Thank you, Sunshine, for the gift. What else? So yeah, questions. What's your favorite doctor? Oh, on Doctor Who? That's tough. Probably who was it? The second one. What's his? I think the second one. The dark-haired one was always my fave, I think. And the favorite companion was what's her face, the kooky one, who's the British comedian, the redheaded British comedian. What's her name? I love her. I haven't watched Doctor Who in a number of years though, but I did like it back then. I think David Tennant, the dark-haired one, right? Right? I think it's David Tennant. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. Donna cracks me up. What a lunatic. I've never seen classic Doctor Who, though. I know of it. Catherine Tate, exactly. I know of it, but I never really watched it. It always looked very old on TV. I never really wanted to see it. Any Yemen news? Nothing really new from Yemen. No. Nothing really. Thank you, Rob, for the fireworks. Oh, I didn't see it said "let's go" at the end. That's cute. But Donna's a freaking lunatic, and I saw her interviewed once. She's just hilarious. I mean, I didn't know she was a British comedian, but it makes sense, because she's just so over the top. So yeah, what else, guys? What else? Remember tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, U.S. We have got our coffee talk that I do with the paid monthly subscribers. So the monthly subscribers on TikTok, join us on TikTok, 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's Washington, D.C., New York City time. 11 a.m. Eastern on Discord for everybody else. So join us there. Any news on Iran? Nope. Nothing really new from Israel. I mean, I would say this with Israel. Thank you, Maddie. I saw somebody mention Israel. Netanyahu's pushing it. I'm not really sure what's going on. Thank you, Eddie. Netanyahu's playing a real game now, and I think he's kind of trying to play Biden, interestingly. Netanyahu knows that in the U.S., as much as the pro-Palestinian side want to complain, generally speaking, it is much more to your electoral benefit being a supporter of Israel than it is being a supporter of the Palestinians. It just is in terms of American politics. So Biden, the bigger threat to Biden, thank you, Adventures, bigger threat to Biden potentially politically is, I'll get to that in a second, Eve Killer, is Netanyahu trying to turn Jews against him and supporters of Israel versus Palestinians trying to turn Arabs against Biden. And I think Netanyahu knows it and he's playing games. I think this is why you see, for example, that's not English. Sorry, trolls. Troll got her wings. Yay. I need a little, actually, you know what I should do? Where is my little thing? Hold on. You know what I should do? Where is he? Oh, here he is. Right, so I dropped you all. Sorry. So dropped you all. So my new policy is going to be, if I remember, every time a troll gets its wings and I see a troll gets its wings, we're doing the screaming goat. This is a screaming goat, which I got because I'm Greek, of course, but that Nia Vardalos, who ended up becoming like a Twitter, we're not friends, but we became like Twitter friends at one point. And she had gotten one of these and I asked her where she got it. And she was like, oh my God, I do speak a little Greek. Yep. Thank you, Adventures. She got it on Amazon and I love this thing. I think it's the funniest damn thing. So anyway, I'll try to, when I see the trolls get axed, I'll try to do a screaming goat. But yeah, so I think, sorry, Eve, I'll get to yours in a second. I think Netanyahu's kind of playing games with Biden, that he's intentionally screwing with Biden. He's intentionally screwing with the U.S. election. Netanyahu would love for Biden to lose the election. Netanyahu got involved before trying to help the Republicans win. He did this in previous American elections, really ticked off a lot of people in the States about this, and he's doing it again. He's trying to screw with Biden. He's trying to, anyway, not a good thing. I mean, I support Israel in a lot of stuff. I've said from the beginning, not a fan of Netanyahu, and once again, he's showing us why we shouldn't be a fan of his. Eve Killer asks, hang on a second here, with a very generous super chat question. Thought I may as well ask for those who are like me, but with the risks of war getting worse, do you think we should worry overall or just watch them overall in our lives? I mean, first of all, worrying gets you nowhere, right? I mean, what are you going to do? Prepare for war with Russia in 20 years? I mean, right? I don't think it matters in that sense. Thank you, Macabre, for that. It's, Adventures. I'm looking at the other gifts to make sure I didn't miss anybody here. Christine. Adventures, Addie, just in case I didn't mention you guys, Addie, Ava, Joe, Sunshine. I may have missed a number of you guys. Rob, Bra. I was going to call you Brad. Bra, Ava, there we go. I think it's the same risk of war we have with Russia today than we had with the Soviet Union. I did not spend my waking hours as a child into adulthood worrying about the Russians nuking us. I mean, you can, but I think that's not really necessary, So I feel the same way now. I don't think war is not imminent with Russia, but they've become a threat again, just like they were when they were the Soviets. And it's something we got to prepare for, and it's something and guess what? We're not the first country in history to have an enemy that we have to worry about. This is sort of, if anything, we've been very lucky. We've been very lucky that we haven't had to sort of deal with a superpower enemy for the last 30 years, even though China kind of fits the bill, but not like the Soviets did. So no, I don't think you should worry about it, but it's unfortunately we're back to the Cold War again, I think, potentially, which sucks. But, we survived it once. I think we'll survive it again. So that's my take on it. I don't get upset about it, but it's worrisome because, we're dealing with people who don't like us and they're powerful and, kind of jerks. So what do you do? What is the Security Council doing? The Security Council can't do much. The United Nations Security Council is the sort of smaller group of 15 countries where you've got the US and Russia and China, France and Britain, and all of us have veto power of anything that comes out of that Security Council. And in a situation like whether it's Israel or Ukraine, Russia and America are on opposite sides, so we veto each other. So they can never decide anything. They can never do anything. So that's not going to do any. Unfortunately, Security Council can't do anything really. Anyway, so what else, guys? What else? It is another useless commission in some ways. Yeah. No, very sadly, but it is. Does your Twitch subscription still count? It still counts. Better subscribe on YouTube. I mean, I don't know that it really matters. I mean, the only thing I'm doing is because I was trying to basically increase the quality of my stream overall, which is why I'm using my good microphone now. I was able to buy some new technology. Like I said, it cost me about $180, but was able to buy some new technology that is helping me use my good mic for TikTok, which is nice, and helping me broadcast louder for you guys on YouTube. But I also wanted to increase the quality of the video for YouTube. For TikTok, the video quality is fine. For YouTube, it's not been very good. And to do that, I have to stream with a software called OBS. But when I stream with OBS, I can't go to multiple sites or it's kind of a mess. You can, but the bandwidth becomes an issue. Thank you, Timothy and Kona. So I'm only streaming to TikTok now, to YouTube, excuse me, for you guys over here so that the quality's better, but you don't get Twitch, you don't get everything else. So the Twitch folks and stuff, it is still a way of supporting me. It's still a way of joining us for our weekends, but I'm not streaming to Twitch is the problem regularly. So that's the situation. So it doesn't really matter. You could certainly do it via YouTube if you want. I'd say maybe it doesn't hurt. I don't know. It's kind of the same. It's 50-50 really. I mean, if you do it on YouTube, you've got your name green and stuff so I can see that you're a subscriber, which is, just nice because it's always fun for me to see who are the folks supporting me. So, but it's up to you. Infected Wi-Fi. I don't know this. It's a good question. Why can't the U.S. make executive level emergency sales to Ukraine with EU country financing? I don't know. Thank you, Scott. I don't quite know the details of the law with regards to, generally speaking, Congress has to approve of weapons sales, okay? But we saw with Israel, Biden was able to invoke a special authority, sort of an emergency authority, to approve, a package for Israel that didn't have to go to Congress, or to at least a part of a package. I don't understand with Ukraine whether that's a possibility at all or not. I don't know. It's not being discussed, which makes me think it's not. I mean, it's not an option because no one's even discussing it. It's also possible that Biden doesn't want to do it because he doesn't want to piss off Congress, that he's afraid that if he were to just go over Congress's head, going over Congress's head for Israel is one thing, right? Because America supports Israel and American politicians really support Israel. So no one's going to complain except the far left and maybe the far right, but no one's going to complain that you helped Israel. I mean, the far left might, but most Americans won't and most politicians won't. Whereas if you go over Congress's head to help Ukraine and declare an emergency, so to speak, and Congress doesn't have to vote on it, the Republicans will go live it and maybe jeopardize future aid. So that's one possibility too, but I just don't know enough of the details of it, if there's even anything Biden could do if he wanted to get around it. Who do I think will win the election, Poppy says. Do you think they will handle foreign affairs better? I think it's an equal chance of, maybe an equal. I think it's, 51% chance Biden, 49% Trump. I really do. We could get Trump again. I do not see how Nikki Haley is going to do well enough to beat Trump in the primaries. It's possible, but it's getting awfully late in terms of the way things are set up in our system. Trump could win. I don't underestimate him. Too many Republicans have shown that they don't care about anything he's done. They don't care about the crime. They don't care about the sexual assault. They don't care about the insurrection, trying to violently overthrow our government. They don't care about him trying to literally steal the election. They don't care about, they don't care about anything. They don't care about him stealing classified information, about giving our nuclear secrets away. They don't care about anything that this guy's done. They don't care about him taking the money for himself and his businesses and his family, about his son-in-law taking $2 billion from the Saudis, about his daughter getting a special deal with the Chinese she couldn't get until he became president. They don't care about Trump. So could he become president? Yes, because too many Republicans, I don't think, care about what it means to be a Republican anymore. They don't care about God. They care about guns. They don't care about faith. They don't care about freedom. They don't care about anything that our country was founded on. They just don't anymore. They used to. At least they used to claim they do. But if you're a Christian, give me a break. And you support Trump, you're not a Christian. You know? And they don't support American values. They don't support the Constitution. They don't support our allies. They don't support anything. I mean, he's anti-NATO. That would be anathema among Republicans. You know, to be against NATO and to support the Russians. That would just, but now because Trump does it, the Republicans go, yes, sir, yes, sir. You know, so no, there is no reason to believe Trump couldn't win. He could win. But Biden could win too. Because maybe enough people in the middle will remember why they didn't vote for Donald Trump last time, because they said, oh my God, this guy's crazy, enough of this. But I worry about it a lot. And in the end, yeah, if Biden wins, thank you, Juan, he will still be supportive of Ukraine, but he's going to still do what he's doing. He doesn't want Ukraine to win. He just doesn't want Ukraine to lose. So Biden's going to still keep screwing up Ukraine if he wins, but at least he's not going to totally pull the plug if he can get the money, but who knows if he can get the money from Congress. But if Trump wins, he's pulling the plug on Ukraine. He's already made that clear. Thank you, Juan. If Nikki Haley wins, she supports Ukraine. So that could work in terms of, at least from a Ukraine perspective. Ron DeSantis doesn't look like he's going to win anyway, but DeSantis flip-flops left and right on Ukraine. Thank you, Suzanne. So not clear what the hell Ron DeSantis, the other Republican, would do. Thank you, Juan. And that's really it for Republicans. There aren't any more. I mean, it's DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Trump who are the only ones with a chance at this point. So it's not great for Ukraine. And you still have to deal with a Republican Congress, or a Republican in principle, right? I mean, the issue with Congress is, the thinking is, the election comes this fall. It's the presidency. Thank you, Fred. It's every seat in the House of Representatives, because in the U.S. system, the entire House of Representatives is up for election every 2 years, which is crazy, but it's every 2 years. The Senate, which is 100 seats, a third of the Senate is up for election every 2 years for 6-year terms. So basically 6 years, 6 years, 6 years, 6 years, right? So a third of the Senate is up for election. The entire House is up for election this fall. It is currently thought that the Democrats will lose the Senate, but we could take back the House, right? So that's a possibility. And with Trump and with abortion and everything else playing out, who knows what'll happen, right? But whoever gets it, I mean, if Republicans get the Senate, there's a better chance of Ukraine funding because the Republicans who run the Senate support Ukraine. So who knows? It's a mess all over the place. I mean, you know, we shall see. What else, guys? Alexandra says Nikki Haley would be the best option for us, for Ukrainians, but I have doubts she may become the president. You know, I think for Ukrainians, Nikki Haley is the best option, yes, because she seems to be super supportive. I think she would be much more anti-Russian than Biden is, much more willing to kind of push things. And it would be harder for Republicans in Congress to oppose a Republican president pushing for funding. Just on Ukraine, yes, I think she'd be the best for you guys. Yes, yes. How many primaries before they declare the candidate? With each primary, thank you, Trilitic, basically, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, you need a certain number of, what do we call them in the primaries? Are they electors? What are they even called? I don't even remember what we call it with what you get each primary. But like in Iowa, they must have had like 30 delegates. Thank you, David. Delegates. How many delegates did we have in Iowa? Do you know? Was it 30, 35, something like? What was it in Iowa? I don't remember. I had the number in front of me before, but you've got a certain number of delegates in each state, and based on the state rules, the number of delegates are. Did I miss a super chat? I've got Eves. Did I miss a? I don't think so. Unless, you know what? My screen isn't advancing. Aha! That's what's happening. Hang on. My screen didn't advance. There we go. Sorry, Daniel. My screen froze on YouTube and I didn't see your question. I'll get to it in a second, Daniel. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me for lopsided. Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, nobody commented in 15 minutes on YouTube. That was weird. Thank you for that. 38 or 40, 30. I'm seeing a number of them. But let's just pretend that Iowa has 40 delegates. The person who wins Iowa gets 20 delegates. The number 2 person gets 10 delegates. The number 3 person gets 3 delegates, or whatever it is. It goes from there. Each state has a different number of delegates based on the size of the state, and you win state by state by state. And basically, you've got to win half plus 1 of the entire pool of delegates, or something like that, in order to win the nomination. So we don't know how many states because it depends. If you win all the delegates in every state, you could win quite quickly. If you keep splitting the vote among other people, you'll have to win more and more states because you're going up more slowly because the other guys are going up too. So it's very complicated. Each state does it differently, but that's the general idea of how it works. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say how long it's going to take. 12, 15 to win. I assume it's half plus 1, Roma, isn't it? I should know this. Sorry, but I'm assuming. Daniel, sorry about that. Hello. Good to see you, Daniel. Daniel O'Neill asks with a very generous, always confusing. Although I will say European elections, somebody was telling me last night again about how in Slovakia, they have a slate of electors, which reminded me Italy does this too. I've never understood how slates of electors work. Like you don't vote for the person, you vote for the slate. So your elections can get goofy too, but ours are particularly scary. Daniel asks, has the West, including the U.S., become weak through poor leadership, self-loathing, polarization, bureaucracy, etc.? Is it possible that despite its huge budget, the U.S. military might be a bit of a paper tiger? I mean, yes, but there's different stuff in different areas, okay? Biden, I think, has been weak on Ukraine because Biden's afraid of Putin. And this could be a couple things. This could be Biden himself is simply somebody who likes to cut a deal. So Biden looks at what's going on, and rather than thinking we beat the Russians, maybe Biden's just someone who thinks, hey, there's always a negotiation. There's always a deal that can be made, and Biden thinks we can make a deal with the Russians, and therefore the Ukrainians need to negotiate. Maybe that's what's going on with Biden, but I think that's a weakness. The problem is, that's one problem, is Biden's approach to Putin. The other problem is and maybe that's poor leadership, maybe, if you want to call it that. The other problem is we've got I don't even want to call it polarization. It's not polarization. The problem in America is not polarization. The problem is MAGA. The problem is this extremist movement that has taken over the Republican Party. It's an isolationist movement, as we've talked about, among other things. And it is a polarizing movement in that MAGA believes that if a Democrat supports something, a Republican must oppose it. So Biden supports Ukraine, Republicans must oppose Ukraine, right? And this is Donald Trump's approach to life, right? If you disagree with him, you're the enemy, whatever, right? So I don't want to call it polarization, but MAGA has corrupted really our values. It's causing gridlock in terms of the system because they don't want to compromise. And in the case of Ukraine, it's turned everything on its head. They're isolationists. They don't care about traditional American freedoms, about America being sort of well, I'd say the world's policeman. It's become a negative, but I don't think it's a problem. We were the world's policeman in World War II and after World War II, and what did it get us? 70 years of prosperity, right? America being the world's policeman helped stop future wars in Europe and wars in Asia. We did a pretty damn good job of it. That's what this was discussed at this dinner I was at last night. That's one of the big things that America accomplished after World War II. We kept the peace, and we got ourselves involved in the world. We spent a lot of money on our defense doing it, and it helped keep the peace. The MAGA folks don't want to do that. They don't believe in keeping the peace. They don't believe we have a role in the world. They also don't believe in American values. They believe, for some crazy reason, in America's enemies, right? They like Putin. The Chinese, they've got a little weird thing with the Chinese, which is kind of funny. But Trump really had a thing for North Korean dictator Kim. Trump loves him. I mean, the worst man in the world, Kim. Horrible man, horrible dictator, murderer. Trump loves him. China, Trump wants to love China because the Chinese have got a lot of money. Trump wants business in China. But he can't get it. Putin, God knows what the hell Putin's got on Trump, what that's about. But Trump just wants Putin to be his friend to all extents. And because MAGA has a little bit of a cult thing going on, for whatever reason, Republicans have given up their traditional defense of values, faith, freedom, foreign policy, projecting America's influence around the world, defending democracy around the world, defending freedom, to whatever Donald Trump says goes. So, I can't speak for Europe, but for America, the problem is right now, Trump and Biden's worldview, I think, is a little screwed up when it comes to Russia. He's too appeasing. And Trump has totally perverted the Republican Party and Republican values. And he's done it in a way where, in a fascist way, where everybody's the enemy. So even though for the last 30 years, you've seen a polarization that's really come from the right more than anything, with Fox News and everything else, thank you, Jeremy, presenting every issue as though Democrats are out to kill you, Democrats are out to steal you, Democrats are out to, take your country away, hurt you, harm you, they're evil. That this mantra has been put out there. Trump raised it to an art form. So every issue now becomes, I had some crazy woman, I should have said something, but I didn't. I was coming back from Midway Airport to see my mom in Chicago. And there was some bad weather, and it took like 45 minutes to get a Lyft or an Uber. And this woman near me was kind of asking me, she goes, how far is O'Hare Airport? I told her, she goes, I can't even get a Uber or whatever. I said, well, mine's coming in 20 minutes. Why don't we just continue it? O'Hare is on the way to the air, my parents is on the way to O'Hare. Why don't we just come with me? And once we get there, we'll add you on and we'll split the difference. She goes, would you do it? I said, of course we'll do it. We go, we're talking on the way, and out of the blue, we're talking about Washington. I didn't tell my politics. Talk about Washington. And she starts saying, I'm convinced we're going to have a civil war. Those Democrats and what that Biden did, I'm now convinced there's going to be a civil war. There's going to be violence. And I'm just looking at her going, and I didn't say it, but I kind of wanted to say, those evil Democrats just gave you a ride to O'Hare Airport when you were going to miss your plane. But there's a craziness. But this is the problem, that there's been 30 years of Fox News and its ilk, Rush Limbaugh, this sort of talk radio folks, et cetera, presenting to Republicans a warped worldview that frankly has been based on lies, but also has been based on Democrats are evil and they're out to kill you and to get you. The gays want to take your kids, whoever wants to take your guns, the blacks want to take your whatever, right? Everything was somebody out to get you and to get you. And then, like I said, Trump took it and raised it to a whole new level, and Trump added in the violence. Republicans, as much as Republicans did a lot of division, they never really did the violence until Trump came. And Trump, we saw it in his 2016 when he talked about hurting people and being violent to people at his rallies. And then, what do you know? It started to spread, right? We started to have the hate crimes. We started to have the attack on the Jewish synagogue that was based on some of the theories that Trump and Fox News and others were putting out there. The crazy man in Florida with the pipe bombs, same thing. Fox News theories, other theories that the Republicans were promoting. And you then have it rising to the insurrection, violent attempt to overthrow our government. And now Trump repeatedly calling for violence, basically in response to his court cases. This is not a coincidence. Thank you, Super Hornet. So anyway, this was a long answer, but and again, it doesn't have to be this way. Thank you, Annie. Republicans used to be normal on this stuff. They used to believe in our country. They used to believe in freedom. They used to believe in the Constitution. They don't anymore because Trump doesn't. And for some reason, too many Republicans want to go with the leader rather than saying, you know what, the guy's kind of a jerk. He's kind of creepy. He's kind of a grifter. And he's violent and he's done too many bad things. Maybe we should. Like I said, you got Nikki Haley. She's great. I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff, but she's normal. Has a few issues with the Civil War, but she's normal. You've got normal people. Ron DeSantis is an idiot, but nonetheless, DeSantis isn't Trump. I don't think DeSantis wants to overthrow our government. he wants you to get COVID, but he doesn't want to at least overthrow our government. But you've got alternatives, and yet you choose Trump. You know, we're going to be talking about Trump a lot over the next year. Not really any choice with it, obviously. You know, it is what it is. Anyway, what else? Ugh, so annoying. I don't know, Cliff. We need to have a young Democrat to have instead of Biden. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole, young Democrat. Why? I mean, Biden, I think Biden's too old, sure, but nonetheless, he is where he is. We're not going to get anybody else right now. But I don't really like the we need younger people. Well, guess what? Those guys in their 60s and 70s have been working their entire life for this job to run for president. I think Biden's too old in the sense of he's getting old. He's clearly getting old, right? But what do? He's better than Trump. He's the guy we got. I don't think it's a problem, but I like somebody younger. But I don't like this idea of all these people in their 70s. Well, these people in their 70s spent a lifetime working to get to the point where they could be president. You spent 10, 20 years, or 20 years. That's nice, but it's not 40 and 40 years to get to that point. They've got more experience than younger people do, and they've waited their time for their opportunity. So I have no problem with I think it's almost kind of funny in a way when people complain like all the leaders of our party are older. Well, maybe they're older because, the way it kind of works in companies, you work your way up. And guess what? Usually the head of the company is younger than the newest guy being hired in the company because the head worked his way up to the top or got hired after working his way up other companies. So I have a problem with those kind of arguments on youth. I think it's fine to get young people involved in stuff, but I think there's almost a little bit of a cult of, young people are great and old people are horrible because they've got experience and wisdom. How horrible of them. I just think that's a bit, that's a bit obnoxious, but what do you do? Anyway. What else? I wouldn't disagree about retirement age for politics, Liam. I think what people think is, well, members of Congress have to get reelected, like Dianne Feinstein, who literally was the walking dead when she was in the Senate. Well, if she can't do the job, her constituents in California wouldn't have reelected her, except they did, and she clearly couldn't. Chuck Grassley is also over the hill in Iowa, and the guy must be 87, 88. Alexa, how old is Chuck Grassley?
Chuck Grassley is 90 years old.
90?
To a hospital in Washington, D.C. for treatment of an infection. Grassley is the oldest member of the
Oh, and he's in the hospital in D.C. for treatment of an infection. I mean, the man should not be president. Nancy Pelosi's old, but she's totally with it. Pelosi must be 80 or something, or 80, how old, 82? Alexa, how old is Nancy Pelosi? Alexa, how old is Nancy Pelosi?
Nancy Pelosi is 83 years old.
83, but Pelosi's boom. I don't care whether you like Pelosi or not. It doesn't matter. Pelosi's smart and she's boom, boom, boom. So, I mean, there are certain people. The thing is, this is also women. I think women tend to age better when it comes to their minds. They do. The guys tend to get a little older faster, I think, than women do. But the problem is, I'd say most people in their 80s, you're starting to push it. Okay, you're just starting to push it when you're in your 80s. I do have a problem with that overall. The problem is, I don't know how you get the term limits passed. I don't know if they're constitutional. And I also think that, the argument is, guess what? Like the Biden thing. Guess what, folks? People voted for him, right? He won the primaries. Yeah, Alexa hesitated. That's a good point, Crit. That would have been a great answer. Crit said Alexa hesitated because you shouldn't ask a woman's age. That would have been a funny answer, like for that to be the answer. The answer is you shouldn't ask a woman's age. Anyway. No, age does not equal intelligence. No, but age brings experience. In any case, my problem is in Congress, though, these guys are just so freaking old. I mean, and they're a lot of them are over the hill and they stay anyway, and that bothers me. Mitch McConnell's got some problems now. He shouldn't be there anymore. I mean, he's clearly got problems. Real problems. Even seeing him, he's way skinnier now. He's another one who's a little bit of he's turning into the Walking Dead. Thank you, G-Dub. It's just not right. And I said the same thing with, my God, Feinstein. I was nonstop saying it about Feinstein. Feinstein shouldn't have been there. She's a Democrat. She shouldn't have been there, you know? But I'm old. I am not old to Le Kiwi. What do you mean? A pox. You're lucky the mods don't get you for that one. Anyway, what else, guys? Oh, 7:15 already. All right. We'll go a little bit longer. Pelosi's good. I've met her. I had a meeting with her years ago, but the woman is damn good. Doesn't matter if you like her politics or not. That woman knows what she's doing. I mean, she's single-handedly responsible for getting Obamacare passed, among other things. You know, thank you, Courtney. Yes, people are asking. This is the jacket I got at a like Goodwill years ago for like $5. I love this jacket. It's brown corduroy. It fits really nicely, and I love it. And again, the Midwesterner in me, $5 from the charity store. It was like, woo woo. Thank you, Mikey. What else, guys? What else? Biden's son. Oh, God. The dinner party was very nice last night. Very interesting. A lot of serious discussion about the world and all of that. So, you know, very good, though. Very interesting. What else, guys? Anything else? Otherwise, I can do my, in a second, I'll do the recap and then we'll go. Hang on a second here. Where is this? Oh, thank you, Christine, for the gift. Where is this? Hello. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bernie's sharp. I would say Bernie Sanders is sharp too. Yes. For somebody who's up there in years, Bernie Sanders is clearly sharp. Again, I don't agree with his politics, but he's a smart guy. He's a smart older guy. He is. No, some people, they get into that age and they're not bad, you know? Cooking, what is my hobby otherwise? I do love to cook. I love gardening, love traveling. I'm going to finally travel. I haven't traveled in a while. I just bought my ticket today. My nephew is kind of just got married. It confuses me. Married a woman from Singapore, but they're having kind of a wedding thing in Bali, Indonesia, because she's from Singapore, you know, in the area in April. So I just bought my ticket today to go to that. So for 2 weeks in April, I'm going to be in Singapore and Indonesia, which of all things, I've been to Bali before. I mean, like, I've only been to 2 or 3 places in Asia, and one of them is Bali that I've been to that he's going to. So I was like, of course, you know. No, but it's just kind of funny. Like, I haven't been to that many places in Asia, but we're going to the one place I've been. But it'll be really nice. It's beautiful. I just checked the weather today, and the weather's going to be like in the 80s and 90. I was like, yes. So it should be very nice. Oh, you lived there for 3 years. That's neat. That's neat. Anyway, so I just bought the ticket today, so that's exciting. Very, very happy. So that'll be fun. But I may not be broadcasting those I suspect I'm not going to be broadcasting those 2 weeks. Otherwise, it's going to be really obnoxious. I'm going to be on a beach or in a jungle going, hello, everybody, just to make you upset, to make you jealous. What's better for me, subscribing on YouTube or TikTok? YouTube brings in a little more money because TikTok takes more. So I'd say YouTube. Yeah. Just because it brings in more, you know. I mean, TikTok is still useful and it's easy for you guys to do it on TikTok. So I recommend people do TikTok if you're there because it's just easy, but they do take a lot. TikTok takes like 50% or something, which is a lot. You know, YouTube takes 30%, which is okay. You know, I may check in. I may check in for fun. Actually, what I may check in is just, I may do more of a travel thing for those 2 weeks that I'm gone, just for fun. You know, hey, Yolanda, 1:17 in the Netherlands. I would imagine, yeah, it's getting a little late there. Thank you for being with us, even though it's late. TikTok, go to China. I know, I could do China. Twitch, I mean, I could go live on Twitch too, actually. I could. Who knows? Maybe do a couple of them. Or on YouTube. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But again, it's not for 3 months. But I may do, like I said, I do like traveling, and I may, assuming people don't think it's obnoxious, I might do some travel updates because I think it would be interesting just to do little videos. And who do I follow on TikTok for news? You know what's funny? I do not follow people on TikTok for news. I was telling somebody at the dinner party last night, I'm the TikTok guy, and people like a lot of the national security people in Washington don't really use TikTok. Some do very effectively, but most of them are Twitter fans, not TikTok. But I was telling them I don't really follow people on TikTok for news. Having said that, very good people on TikTok. David Pakman is amazing on TikTok and YouTube. Brilliant guy. I think it's Pakman. Very nice guy. Very smart. Very good. Preston Stewart, we were talking about, is brilliant on TikTok. They banned him recently. He's trying to get unbanned because for no legitimate reason, they took his account down. And there are a number of fake accounts of people pretending to be him. So make sure it's the real account. He's got a backup account that has like 70,000 people. So you know that's real. He's excellent. He's on YouTube as well. Also TikTok. He's brilliant. Besides that, I'm trying to think actually. I don't follow people on TikTok for news. I get my news from Pacman's amazing. I mean, I interviewed him once on our podcast. He's just my podcast I used to do. Wonderfully nice, interesting guy. Born in Argentina, which is an interesting little thing as well. But I get my news from a lot of it from Twitter because I follow a lot of really good national security, foreign policy people on Twitter, so that it's not like gossip or anything. I mean, I get it from good people. So that's a lot of where I get my news from. And then I just read the paper. I read the news. I mean, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal. I just like read the papers, Google, that kind of stuff. So it depends. But Twitter is a cesspool, correct? But I've got some lists I created of like my foreign policy, like Ukraine. So I can read my Ukraine people and see just all the news without the crazies. So if I just follow my people, it's pretty good. I try not to read the comments very often. And I don't read the Twitter's for you or whatever they call it on Twitter. I won't generally look at because I don't want to see the crazies. But the people I follow are very good, so I read them and it's very interesting. Especially like I said, the international affairs types are really good. So anyway, but yeah, I'll post from Bali. Why not? It'll be fun. I am on Instagram. I don't do enough. I'm not on Snapchat. I am on Instagram. Same account, Aravosis. I don't do it enough, but I should. Just like photos and things like that because I'm a big photo person. It's quieter and picture angle better here. It's quieter here. It's quieter on YouTube than here, I would think. Yeah, than TikTok. Yeah. The White House is big on tech, aren't they? I mean, they are. But TikTok is its own weird thing. I mean, TikTok, you got the Chinese problem. You've got a lot of reasons like American, especially politicians are a little nervous about TikTok because of the Chinese thing. Whereas Twitter, everybody knows you've got to be on Twitter. But I would say a lot of them aren't very good at Twitter. I mean, like people like Richie Torres is huge on Twitter. But a lot of them, Eric Swalwell, a congressman from California, very good on Twitter. But a lot of them really aren't. I think part of it is they don't have the time, right? I mean, let's face it, to do social media, you got to kind of do it all day long. And if you're busy, it's like I do this as my job so I can be on social media and justify it, right? How to get Ukraine back in the news? Honestly, it's got to be the president and important people like that talking about it. I mean, they've got to talk about it, and they're not, I think, really enough. All right, let me do the quick summary, guys, and then we'll get going. It's 7:20, and then remember tomorrow morning. Nasty death threats. There's a story. Oliver Stone. You can Google it. Google Eric Swalwell death threat with Roger Stone. Nasty story. Crazy story. Stone claims that the tape that came out of somebody who sounds like Oliver Stone basically making a death threat against a U.S. congressman, a Democrat, saying we need to kill him. He claims that it's an AI fake. An AI organization analyzed the tape and said it's not a fake. And Stone has made similar comments before. The FBI is investigating. It's not good. It's not. It's very scary. I mean, that's just not the stuff I mean, again, I've been in Washington a long time. You don't talk about killing people. That's just not. I don't care. I can't stand Donald Trump. You don't talk about killing people. You do not do that in politics. You just don't. I mean, first of all, you don't do that in life, right? That's not something we typically say. Yeah, I don't like that guy. Right? You don't do that. And you don't do it in politics. So, Democrat or Republican. Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't like her either. Doesn't matter. You don't talk about that kind of stuff. So, very bad. All right, let me do a quick summary, guys, here, and then we'll get going. Remember, tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S., subscribers on monthly subscribers on TikTok, monthly subscribers on YouTube, Twitch, Ko-fi, Discord as well. All of you join us. The rest of you join us on Discord. You guys on TikTok, join us on TikTok. You can subscribe right now if you want on TikTok. There's some button somewhere in my profile that says live membership. For you guys on YouTube, should be able to click the $ at the bottom, I think, and do it. But Vlad's definitely joining us tomorrow, he said, so that'll be fun from Ukraine. All right. Really quick, I talked first about the impact of Ukraine losing U.S. funding. U.S. intelligence says it's going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem for several months, but it will be eventually. And then it'll be bad. War. I then talked about a number of different folks, including a NATO admiral and the German defense minister, who are increasingly worried about the possibility of war with Russia. Not necessarily in the next couple years, but the Germans think 5 to 8 years. Others are saying the admiral maybe in 20 years, but that basically the Soviet Union is back. That Russia is back to being who it used to be, sort of belligerent, international, miscreant, sadly. NATO is going to have its biggest military exercise in decades next week. Ukraine hit 4 oil reservoirs in Russia and set them on fire using some kind of an airplane drone. They were calling it an airplane drone versus a regular drone. I'm not sure why, but apparently it's a different kind of drone. The UK Ministry of Defense says that the Russians pretty much admitted that the Ukrainians did shoot down their spy plane last week, because the Russians are now flying their basically a different spy plane because the other one got shut down, and they're now flying it only in Russian territory, not closer to Ukraine. Thank you, Tom. Because when they flew it in Ukraine, it got shot down. If there was just an accident or the Russians shot down their own plane, they wouldn't be flying this new plane way further out of the way. They're flying it out of the way because they don't want to get hit, which means the Ukrainians hit the plane. They're confirming the Ukrainians did take down the spy plane, which is good news. Baltic countries are building up their defenses on the Russian and Belarusian borders, growing concern about Russia being more belligerent. And finally went through a chart showing the donors to Ukraine and how the U.S. is number 1, Germany is number 2, Britain is number 3, and then Norway, Denmark, Poland, Netherlands, Sweden, Canada, Finland, Czech Republic, Italy, and France. France is like 13 or 12, not very good. France needs to step up and do better. Baltic countries, Nordic countries doing very well. All right, guys, I'm going to go. I'm getting hungry, actually. I'm going to get some food. And join me tomorrow morning, like I said, 11 a.m. Eastern Time if you are a monthly subscriber. Otherwise, do check out TikTok. I do post updates most days, actually most every day, even the weekend. I try to post some updates on TikTok. And my new setup, I'm using the good microphone on TikTok now too, so hopefully it sounds better on my TikTok videos. Let me know about that, actually. See what you think, TikTokers. And there you go. Otherwise, thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you, mods. And I will see you guys all. Thank you, Rogue. I will see you guys, some of you tomorrow and the rest of you on Monday. All right? Sound is good. Excellent. All right, guys. Yeah, take care from the Baltics. Thanks for Nutella. That's cute. All right, thanks, Baltics. All right, guys. See you. Have a good weekend otherwise. I'll see you next week. All right?